All right, so today we are going to deep dive into something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Japan's strategy to attract more students from African countries.
Interesting.
You send over these excerpts from this University World News article. Japan set on luring more students from African countries. And honestly, it's kind of like everyone else is asleep at the wheel, and
Right.
Japan is making these really smart
Yeah,
moves.
what's really fascinating to me is like the
Yeah.
contrast. Other countries seem to be kind of like scaling back their recruitment efforts in Africa, but Japan's like, no, 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 we're going all in.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. So
Huh.
the article mentions Japan's demographic situation, and
Right.
they have the fastest aging population in the world. Birth rates are
Oh yeah.
plummeting. I mean, I knew Japan was dealing with this, but the urgency in the article really struck me.
It's a major issue for them.
Right.
And they need an influx of young talent,
Right.
not just to bolster their workforce,
Right.
but also to like revitalize their universities and research institutions.
Hmm.
And this is where the connection to Africa becomes
Oh, yeah.
super interesting.
So Africa has the fastest growing youth population globally.
Exactly.
And so while other countries might be overlooking this huge pool of talent,
Yeah.
Japan's like, hey, we see you.
Yeah,
We want you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're not just talking about it. They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Right.
The article highlights this Professor Miyamoto,
Yeah.
who's kind of spearheading this program called Study in Japan for Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And she argues that like welcoming motivated, high-potential young people from all over the world
Right.
is essential for Japan's future.
And she even suggests that this exchange could benefit both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Not just filling gaps in Japan's workforce,
Yeah.
but also fostering human resource development back in Africa.
Absolutely. A
Let's-
win-win.
A win-win. Right.
Yeah.
But it can't just be about filling seats in classroom.
No, no, no. It goes
Yeah.
it goes much deeper than that. And this is where it gets really interesting. The article suggests that this strategy goes way beyond just numbers.
Okay.
It's about cultural exchange,
Okay.
soft power,
Huh.
and building these long-term relationships.
Okay, hold on. Soft power, I'm familiar with the term, but, for our listener who might not be.
Sure.
Can you break that down a little bit?
So think of it as the ability to influence others,
Yeah.
not through force or coercion,
Right.
but through attraction and persuasion.
Hmm.
Things like culture, values, diplomacy.
Hmm.
In this case, by welcoming African students, Japan is showcasing its unique culture, technological prowess,
Right.
educational opportunities,
Right.
which, enhances its global image and strengthens ties with a continent that's really on the rise.
Okay, so I see how attracting students fits into that strategy.
Yeah.
But beyond the warm fuzzies of cultural exchange,
Yeah.
is there something more concrete at play here? Like, are there any economic or geopolitical motives we should consider?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Japan is a major player on the global stage, and Africa is becoming increasingly important, both economically and strategically.
Ah,
By building these relationships early on,
right.
Japan is positioning itself as a key partner in Africa's future development.
Okay.
And let's not forget, China's influence in Africa has been growing rapidly.
Wow, you're right. This initiative suddenly feels a lot more strategic
Yeah.
than just offering some scholarships. It's like Japan's playing a long game here, one that could have major implications for global power dynamics.
Absolutely fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So if we look at the details of this Study in Japan for Africa program,
Right.
we can see how Japan is really tailoring its approach to Africa's needs and potential.
Yes.
They're focusing on key disciplines like robotics,
Uh-huh.
AI biotechnology
Yeah.
fields where Japan is a global leader and where Africa has tremendous potential for growth.
Exactly.
So it's not just bringing any students over. It's about cultivating expertise
Yeah.
in areas that could benefit both Japan and Africa in the long run.
It's a smart move.
Very clever. The article also mentioned that they're establishing regional offices in Botswana and Kenya
Yeah.
to manage this program.
Yeah.
Seems like they're pretty serious about making this work.
Oh, yeah. They have a clear goal in mind. Increase the number of African students in Japan to 2,500 by 2028.
Wow.
A significant jump from the current figures.
Okay.
But they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Ah.
The article also mentions the ABE Initiative.
Ah, yes. The African Business Education Initiative for Youth.
Right.
Another program designed to nurture talent and leadership in Africa.
exactly.
But how is this program different from Study in Japan for Africa?
Okay.
I mean, they both seem to be bringing African talent to Japan.
So that's a great question. The ABE Initiative is actually quite distinct.
Okay.
It's specifically designed for young professionals
Okay.
and focuses on providing master's degrees and internships at Japanese companies.
So it's more about building practical skills and
Yeah.
connections within Japanese industries.
Precisely. It's about equipping these young professionals
Right.
with the tools and networks they need to make a real impact when they go back home.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. Japan isn't just attracting students.
Yeah.
They're cultivating future leaders and collaborators who can bridge the gap between Japan and Africa.
That's a great way to put it.
And if we dig a little deeper, the article also mentions...
Yeah.
Um,
What else is there?
well, we'll have to say that for part 2.
Okay, sounds good.
It's interesting to think about this in the context of, like, Japan's history with Africa.
Right.
They've been involved in development assistance for decades.
Mhm.
But this focus on education and attracting students feels like a whole new chapter.
It is. It's a subtle but significant shift.
Yeah.
You know, traditional aid models often have this top-down approach,
Right.
but this feels more like a partnership,
Right.
a genuine investment in Africa's future.
Yeah, and it aligns with this growing global recognition of Africa's potential, right? We're moving away from seeing the continent solely through the lens of poverty and conflict and starting to recognize the incredible talent, innovation, and economic opportunities that exist there.
Japan seems to be at the forefront of that shift.
So let's go back to the programs.
Okay.
You were talking about this emphasis on STEM fields
Right.
in study in Japan for Africa. I mean, that makes perfect sense given Japan's reputation for technological innovation.
It's a strategic alignment.
Mm.
Japan is a global leader in robotics,
Right.
artificial intelligence, and all these other cutting-edge technologies. By attracting students from Africa in these fields,
Yeah.
they're not only sharing their expertise, but also fostering a new generation of innovators who can contribute to both Japan and Africa's technological advancement.
And the article mentions that they're offering fully funded scholarships,
Right.
which is huge.
Huge, yeah.
Not only does this remove financial barriers,
Yeah.
but it also sends a strong message about Japan's commitment to inclusivity and diversity in their higher education system.
It's a powerful statement. They're basically saying, we value your talent
Right.
and potential, and we're willing to invest in your future.
It feels like a much more sustainable approach compared to traditional aid models.
Absolutely.
It's not just a handout.
Yeah,
It's a genuine investment in human capital.
I agree.
And speaking of investment, let's circle back to the ABE Initiative
Okay.
and its focus on professional development. The article mentioned internships at Japanese companies.
Yes.
Which is an amazing opportunity to gain real-world experience.
It's more than just theoretical knowledge.
Right.
These internships provide practical skills, cultural immersion,
Right?
and valuable networking opportunities that these young professionals can take back to their home countries
Uh-huh.
and apply to their respective fields.
It creates a two-way street of knowledge transfer, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
African professionals learn from Japan's expertise,
Yeah.
and Japanese companies gain valuable insights from their perspectives and experiences in African markets.
So this all sounds incredibly positive.
Yeah.
But are there any potential downsides or criticisms we should consider?
Of course, with any initiative of this scale, there are always potential challenges.
Right.
One concern is the classic brain drain argument.
Right. The idea that by attracting African talent to Japan,
Yeah,
they're essentially depriving Africa of its own skilled workforce.
that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
However, the article also highlights this concept of brain circulation.
Okay, so what is brain circulation
Right.
and how does it relate to this situation?
So instead of a one-way flow of talent from Africa to Japan,
Okay.
imagine a more dynamic exchange.
Okay.
By fostering strong connections between African and Japanese institutions,
Right.
these programs can create opportunities for collaboration research partnerships and even return migration,
Okay.
where professionals bring their acquired skills and knowledge back to Africa.
So instead of a brain drain,
Yeah.
it could actually become a brain gain for both sides.
Exactly. But it requires careful planning, sustained commitment,
Right.
and a genuine focus on mutual benefit.
So what would that look like in practice?
Okay.
What steps could be taken to ensure that these programs contribute to Africa's development
Right.
rather than hinder it?
Well, for starters, it's crucial to involve African institutions and stakeholders
Okay.
in the design and implementation of these programs.
Uh-huh.
Their input is essential to ensure that the training and skills development
Right.
are aligned with Africa's specific needs and priorities.
That makes sense. It can't be a one-size one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
And beyond skills development, what about addressing the social and cultural aspects of this exchange?
Yeah, that's another critical element. It's not enough to just offer scholarships and internships.
Right.
There needs to be a genuine effort to create a welcoming and inclusive environment for African students and professionals in Japan.
So you're talking about things like language support,
Yes.
cultural sensitivity
Does.
training, and addressing potential biases or discrimination.
Exactly. Success hinges on fostering intercultural understanding, building bridges, and creating a genuine sense of belonging.
Right.
Otherwise, those brain circulation benefits we discussed
Right.
might not materialize.
This is all incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
I mean, we started with an article about Japan attracting African students,
Right.
and now we're talking about global power dynamics, brain circulation, and the importance of cultural sensitivity.
Yeah, it's amazing how one topic can lead to so many layers of complexity. It's a testament to the interconnectedness of our world, wouldn't you say?
You're so right. And speaking of critical examination, there's one more aspect of this initiative that I think deserves a closer look.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, what is it?
So we've talked about, the potential benefits of this Japan-Africa partnership.
Right.
But what about the potential risks? Specifically, the possibility that this initiative could be perceived as like a new form of colonialism.
That's a really important point to consider.
Yeah.
You can't ignore the historical context. Japan, like many other developed nations,
Right.
has a complex and at times problematic past when it comes to its interactions with Africa.
So how can they avoid repeating those mistakes? How can Japan ensure that this partnership is
Right.
truly equitable and mutually beneficial?
I think transparency is key.
Okay.
Japan needs to be upfront about its motivations and goals and ensure that African nations have an equal seat at the table
Right.
when it comes to decision-making and shaping the terms of these partnerships.
It can't just be about extracting talent or resources.
Yeah.
It needs to be about empowering African nations and fostering genuine collaboration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that includes ensuring that the benefits of these programs are shared equitably.
Right.
For example, making sure that African universities and research institutions
Okay.
are also receiving funding and support,
Huh.
not just individual students or professionals.
It's about building capacity within Africa, not just creating opportunities for individuals to leave.
Exactly. And it's about ensuring that African voices are heard and respected
Right.
throughout the process.
Okay, so transparency, equity, and a genuine commitment to collaboration
Yes.
are essential for this initiative to succeed in the long run.
I agree.
But I'm also curious about the long-term impact on Japan itself.
Right?
How might this influx of African students and professionals change Japanese society?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Japan has historically been
Yeah.
a very homogenous society.
Right.
But this initiative could bring about significant cultural and demographic shifts.
It could lead to increased diversity and new perspectives,
That's
to more
right.
vibrant and interconnected society.
Precisely.
Right.
But it also requires Japan to be open and willing to embrace those changes, to create a society that is truly welcoming and inclusive,
Right.
where people from different cultures can thrive and contribute their unique talents.
That's a challenge for any society.
It is.
But it's especially crucial in this context.
Yeah.
If Japan wants to reap the full benefits of this partnership,
Right.
they need to be prepared to embrace the cultural richness and diversity that comes with it.
It's not just about attracting talent.
Right.
It's about creating a society where that talent can flourish and contribute to a shared future.
This has been a really insightful deep dive. I mean, we started by exploring Japan's strategy to attract African students,
Right.
and we ended up discussing colonialism, global power dynamics,
Yeah.
and the importance of creating inclusive society.
It really speaks to the complexity of this issue
Yeah.
and the interconnectedness of our world.
So for our listener, what's the key takeaway here?
I think the key takeaway is Japan's initiative to attract African talent
Yeah.
is a fascinating case study in strategic partnership, but it's not a simple solution to complex challenges.
It's not just about filling gaps in the workforce or boosting economies.
No.
It's about navigating historical sensitivities, fostering genuine collaboration.
Yes.
And building a more equitable and interconnected world.
And it's about recognizing that true success lies not just in attracting talent,
Right.
but in creating a society where that talent can thrive and contribute to a shared future.
That's a powerful thought to leave our listener with. So as always, we encourage you to continue exploring this topic, to delve deeper into the nuances and complexities, and to form your own informed opinions. This deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about, and I hope it's done the same for you. Thanks for joining us.